Good afternoon, New Life Church. Well, this past week, our reading from the book of Luke was packed full of wonderful accounts from the life of Jesus. We read about how he calmed the storm and called the disciples and healed many that were brought to him who were sick. We also read many of the teachings of Jesus as people would come to hear what he had to say. We read about how he said to love your enemies, how he taught in parables that taught spiritual truths, and how we even told the disciples about his death and resurrection. Well, there's one account that I want to take a few moments and share with you that spoke to my heart this past week. But before I share it, I have a question for you. How many of you have ever wished, or kind of in that funny type of prayer, said, God, I wish you would have given me one more hour in the day? Or if you're like me, maybe you've said, God, I wish I had 4 or 5 more hours in the day. Why couldn't you just give me more time to get done what I have to do? God, you know there's a list of things that need to be done today, and they are so urgent. And I'll look at my to-do list, and there's thing after thing after thing after thing that I feel is so urgent and must get done. And as I thought about it, what would I do with that extra hour, or in my case, 4 or 5 hours? I would just fill it with more and more things to keep me busy. And as I continue to think about it and continue to think of all those things that I would put on that to-do list, sadly, I realized that spending more time with God kind of came down at the bottom of the list. I wanted more time to do, that I forgot what would be the most important thing if I were to have an extra hour or 4 or 5 more hours. We get so caught up and so busy in the urgent of what we feel needs to be done at the moment, and our life becomes so incredibly busy that by the end of the day, we fall into bed, we crash, we are exhausted. As we fall asleep, what are we doing? We are thinking about tomorrow's to-do list, and the next day's to-do list, and next week's to-do list, all while wishing we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more hours in a day in which to accomplish it. Well, you know what? We don't need 1, 2, or 3 more hours. But what we do need is to learn how to prioritize our time. I recently read a quote, and it said this: your greatest danger is letting the urgent things crowd out the important things. And how true that is. So many times we let what we feel is urgent take the place of what is important. And we find that in the story today in Luke chapter 10, which is actually the reading for today. And at the very end of Luke chapter 10, at the end of the chapter, we read the story of Mary and Martha. And most of us, if not all of us, have read this story before. We read that Jesus is coming. How exciting! Jesus is coming to their house for a visit. And there are things that have to be done. Now, if you're like me, when company is coming, I make sure to get everything done. I have a to-do list for almost everybody in the house that needs to be accomplished, that I feel is urgent to get done. We clean from top to bottom. We dust, we mop, we make sure that everything's put away. And if they're coming for a meal, we make sure that everything is prepared accordingly. So in this story, we read that Martha is busy. She has her to-do list. There's a lot to do. She wants everything to be perfect for Jesus' visit. Nothing wrong with that. But then we read of Mary. What is Mary doing? Mary is simply sitting at the feet of Jesus. And we'll say, why would she be sitting there? Because she has realized what is most important. Yeah, there were many urgent things that needed to be done, but in the moment, the most important thing that Mary could be doing was not all the things on that to-do list, which I'm sure she had one, but the most important thing that she could do at that moment was to sit at the feet of Jesus, to stop, to stay still, and to listen to what Jesus had to say. I don't think either one of these ladies were intentionally doing anything wrong. I think Mary had the right priority, though, to sit at the feet of Jesus and listen, to put that as number 1 on her to-do list. Martha, however, had her priorities maybe a little bit mixed up. She thought of everything that needed to be done and then thought, whatever's left over, I'll sit at the feet of Jesus. And you know what? In that way, she almost missed the most important thing that was taking place that day. It's the fact that she had the opportunity to meet with Jesus. She had the opportunity to spend time in his presence. But with all that she was doing and all that she felt that needed to be done at that moment, she almost missed the most important thing, and that was Jesus. And sometimes life gets that way. There are so many things that we feel are urgent, that we've got to get done right now, that we miss the most important thing, sitting at the feet of Jesus. Well, as Martha complains, we see Jesus as he dearly says to her these words, "My dear Martha, you are worried and upset over many details. There is only one thing worth being concerned about, and Mary has discovered it, and it will not be taken from her." This week, as we go about the busyness of our schedule and the things that we think are urgent, let us make sure that we prioritize just like Mary did and put our relationship with God as number one on that to-do list. Make sure that we take the time up front to spend time at the feet of Jesus. Because I think that if we do that, if we prioritize and we put Jesus first, then everything else will fall into place and we'll be better equipped and ready to face whatever comes our way. So I challenge you and I challenge myself as we go into the week, as we go into the months, let's prioritize our relationship with Jesus. Be like Mary, sit at his feet before we get caught up in all of the to-do lists that come across our way. New Life Church, have a great week, and we are praying for you. We love you, and we will see you on Wednesday.